Hello, everyone. My name is Ravi Kumar, President at Infosys. Very delighted and excited to launch this new platform, Reskill and Restart. And I have a set of partners who are going to talk to you about what this is all about. So I'll be excited to introduce them in a short while. But in the meantime, I wanted to give a very quick context of what we are going to do and what is this consortium all about. In the past few years, the advent of new age technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, digital technologies is kind of changing all three dimensions of an enterprise: workplaces, and workforce. And as these changes have been gradual, 75 million jobs of the past will be gone, and 125 million jobs of the future will be created. In fact, there is a stat which I kind of relate to: 6 out of 7 jobs have not been created yet. Now, in many ways, this pandemic has transformed some of those predictions into reality. And the change, which was very gradual so far, has been all of a sudden, there has been an exponential curve, if I may, in terms of adoption of some of this into reality. Interestingly, the pandemic actually has also given us this opportunity to leapfrog into the jobs of the future. 40 million Americans have lost jobs, and the recessions of the past, we've always had a lost opportunity. I would say a lost opportunity to leapfrog into the future, and I'm hoping that the current crisis we are all in is going to be that inflection point where we can transition to the jobs of the future, and we could use this opportunity to move from degrees to skills, and we would use this opportunity to move from low skill workers to high skill workers and build the bridge around it, and our own ability to make the whole process very inclusive. We could penetrate into the underserved, disadvantaged in a way, and bridge the divide, if I may, which was created by the previous generations. So that's the broad context in which this consortium was built. I do believe that a crisis of this kind has decimated industries, has decimated work streams. And what we need today is a template for radical reskilling. And this partnership, a set of consortium partners coming together, which are complementary in nature, I would believe we have a magic template which would enable jobs of the future, which would create the bridge to move jobs of the past to jobs of the future, which will allow us to replicate this template to get the 40 million people in the United States into jobs of the future. And hopefully, in this conversation, you're going to hear from my friends and colleagues on this consortium. We'll give you a snapshot of what we're trying to do, and hopefully that template could be replicated all over the world. So without further ado, let me introduce my team. My first panelist is Frida Polis, CEO and founder of Pymetrics. And Frida, would you like to say quickly 1 or 2 lines about what the company does, and then I'll go to the other partners, and then we will open it up for a lively conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ravi. Pymetrics is a company that does soft skill matching of people's fit to jobs or careers that they may never have done before or even considered before. And as you mentioned, in this time of radical reskilling, understanding your soft skill, your inherent aptitude for a job is more critical now than ever.
Thank you, Frida. Second on the panel is Rajesh Ahuja, my colleague from Infosys, who's been one of the architects of this whole whole consortium. Rajesh, want to give a very quick one-line introduction about you?
Thanks, Ravi. Hi, this is Rajesh, and I head the talent acquisition function for Infosys. And as a talent acquisition professional, I'm very convinced that the future of getting talent is in learning rather than finding people. So that's the reason I'm deeply involved in architecting this platform and look forward to everyone to use it.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next is Connor Dimond-Yuman, co-CEO of Merit America. Connor, you can go next.
Great. Thank you, Ravi. Hi, everybody. Great to connect. My name is Connor. So Merit America is focused on preparing low-wage Americans for skilled careers at scale. We focus on folks who don't have a bachelor's degree, and for no money up front, we put them through training programs that they can take while keeping their jobs, while social distancing, while dealing with everything else that's going on now, and then place them into career tracks in advanced manufacturing, IT, and healthcare. So it's great to be here with this esteemed group.
Thank you, Connor. So let me go next to Jacob Mehel, the CEO of Woz U. Jacob, you want to quickly tell us what Woz U does and a quick introduction about you?
Perfect. Yes, Ravi. Super excited about being involved in this consortium. Woz U focuses, its desire is to take people that haven't been in the tech field and how do we help them transition into the tech field. We've learned that there's a lot of opportunity out there as the job streams have changed, where people don't understand the new technology industry. And what we specialize in is how do we get them the day one ready skills that allows them to become a productive member of their new organization that they're working with. And our goal is to be able to do that with as many people as we can so that they can make that transition from sort of the old work environment to the new work environment that we find ourselves in.
Thank you, Jacob. Over to my next partner, Damon Howard, the CEO of Scholas. Damon, do you want to quickly tell us about Scholas and yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Ravi, and thank you for having me. Scholas is a national 25-year-old nonprofit that drives positive and proven social change in communities across the country. We do this through rigorous and tuition-free technology training and professional development. And we prepare motivated and curious adults who are unemployed or underemployed for successful careers as technology professionals. And we create on-ramps to businesses in need of their talents. And we do this across 15 cities across the country. And we're looking forward to having this conversation, and it's an honor to be a part of this coalition.
Thank you, Damon. We have one of the reasons why I believe this is very complementary and it is the need of the hour is because we are talking about radical reskilling. Radical reskilling really means there are industries where you have to move people to, there are work streams where you have to move people to, and you have to move them from different work streams in different industries. So when you do so, just an online training is not enough. You have to assess the skills, you have to find the right pathways, then you have to place them in the right pathways with online content, and then you have to do experiential learning or an apprenticeship or on-the-job training, as I call it. And then you need to have a marketplace to match the demand and supply. So I do think this is the uniqueness of this consortium, that it's kind of very complementary and sized for radical reskilling, because you need all these constituents if you really want to find jobs and if you really want to place them in jobs. We're not talking about upskilling. We're really talking about reskilling and reskilling from a variety of work streams to a variety of work streams. And that's why I believe this is so unique amongst everything else which is available in the market. And that excited me as an individual to participate in this process and to be a part of this consortium. So my first question, and happy to, any one of you can answer it, and we could open it up for debate. What is that one thing you believe which is so unique about this consortium? And I did tee up my own point of view on why this is so unique. There are a variety of them in the market. Some are led by states, some are led by public policymakers, some are actually led by a consortium of this kind. Some are led by institutions coming together and trying to do something. But these are all new age, next generation talent reskilling companies, and Infosys thought you are the right partner group for us to bring together. And this is for any one of you who wants to take this. What did you feel was so unique about this opportunity to bring this entire value chain together?
Okay, I can take this, Ravi. Like, my name is Ashwin, founder CEO of Revature, and Ravi, what I believe is very unique about this consortium is it is primarily an outcome-based consortium. This is not about making somebody into a theoretical genius. This is an absolutely outcome-based consortium. And the outcome here is the best outcome, which is the job. So the entire focus is to get that outcome for well-deserved applicants and well-deserved candidates. And that is what I see as a very unique about this consortium compared to many other things that is existing or sprouting in this space. That's my opinion, actually.
Thank you, Ashwin. Saying something. Yeah, and you were actually one of the first few architects in the process. I have probably brainstormed with you for the longest time on putting all of this together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ravi, I have a slightly different take, although what Ashwin said is absolutely true. I think the other thing that's extremely unique is that we've brought together a variety of really important layers to this problem. So we brought together a soft skill assessment platform like pymetrics. We are also doing skills assessment using the Burning Glass taxonomy. And then we have multiple layers of reskilling available through this consortium that you brought together and through other offerings. So I think it is addressing all aspects of the problem, not simply basing it on skills matching or only offering a few pathways to success. It's really the most comprehensive on both the layers that are needed for this, as well as the partners that are involved. So I'm my honor to be involved. And I also agree that ultimately ending up with a job is the key to this.
One additional thing, how much is that assessment engine so critical for identifying the pathway they would fit into, considering the fact that they would have never done this before and they're going to jump in and do a new work stream and a new industry?
Yeah, it's essential, really, Ravi, and we can improve outcomes by, at 30, 50%, depending on the quality of the assessment. And so that's why I think bringing together a soft skill assessment that can literally evaluate someone for a job that they may never have even been considered before, let alone done before. And then also matching that with the skills assessment piece, which will say, okay, of the skills needed, these are the ones you have versus these are the ones you don't have. So it provides someone with a skills gap assessment of how much is it really going to take to move into that career. I think that is so critical to then providing the reskilling partners in this consortium with the best suited talent for their training courses. I think it's absolutely critical.
Yeah,
thank you, Frida. Thank you so much. And I've always brainstormed with you on the entire platform. So I've always enjoyed your ideas and thoughts about how to bring this together. So Rajesh, you were saying something.
Yeah. So the other perspective which I would like to bring is an employer perspective, right? While the candidate this platform will provide a lot of value adds to an individual candidate, be it in terms of assessing themselves, reskilling themselves, and be ready for their jobs. But from an employer perspective, what it also does is it's providing them candidates who are typically not available for them to assess and look for employment opportunities. And also they are trained on skills which are required for today's generation or today's jobs. And hence, in my view, this is kind of a 360-degree view to the platform, which is from a candidate perspective, they get multiple multiple advantages or multiple benefits, as well as an employer who also get a set of candidates who are trained on new age skills, who are ready to get into jobs of future. And as you said in the beginning, that there are jobs which are not created, and hence the skills, we don't know those skills, and we don't know those how to train people on. So this platform is going to constantly evolve and build on those programs for which employers will continue to look for candidates in the future. So that's the modular approach, which really makes this platform quite unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a Lego block. We also can take pieces of it to a policymaker or a state or a government.
Absolutely.
Connor, if I look at the 40 million jobs which have been lost in the US, 70% of them don't have a degree, and 70% of them predominantly are low-skill jobs which have been lost. You've been in this business of moving people from low-skill jobs to high-skill jobs, and I think this is an inflection point. Every recession is an inflection point, and we've lost that opportunity in the past. Do you think this recession, we could change that? And what's been your learnings on these journeys from low skills to high skills? What's the one or two things you believe we haven't got it right in the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a few points on that. One is that I think we have to recognize that there's an incredible amount of bias and discrimination in this country against people who don't have bachelor's degrees. And as a result of that discrimination, we are cutting ourselves off from some exceptional, inspiring talent. There are over 100 million individuals in this country who are either underemployed or unemployed, folks who don't have bachelor's degrees, who can be contributing to our workforce that we are cutting out. And there's also an equity component in this as well. When we say that we don't accept folks who don't have degrees, we're automatically cutting out, over 80% of people of color, of Latinx individuals, and that has real downstream implications for our companies, for our culture. And so, we're excited to explore ways to use this opportunity, not just to get people back to work, right? We don't want to just put people back in the job. We want to put them in upwardly mobile, recession-resilient careers that they can build on, and doing so in such a way that emphasizes skills rather than just credentials. And so I think we're really excited about that opportunity. Also noting that history is really clear that when there are severe economic contractions, recessions, the folks who are most vulnerable, the folks who take the most time to get back into the workforce, are the folks without degrees. And so I think there's also a responsibility that we have to coalesce around these individuals and to support them through this next chapter.
No, Ravi, I was just going to say very briefly.
Please go ahead.
That, part of what we learned on this journey as we support those individuals who don't have the degrees or individuals coming from overlooked communities is that, one, we have to help build that confidence in them because they're super talented, they're brilliant individuals, and they can add enormous value to companies' top and bottom lines. But we have to find very tactical ways to build that confidence and give them the skill set so that they can be superior once they land. But we also have to take a very methodical approach to changing the employer's overall approach around absorbing this kind of talent. Because if you treat these kinds of initiatives where we're reskilling individuals without degrees and coming from overlooked communities, if you treat it as a project or an initiative, that's the kind of outcomes that you will have. So moving the needle and building confidence on both sides is essential when you're talking about moving people from low skill to high skills and getting them into these roles. It's about making sure that companies digest this as a part of their cultural DNA and not just another project that they're getting off the ground trying to check off boxes. But once you make that transition and then you stack the value that's necessary so that your corporate partners can understand where the value is coming from, why it's important, hire diverse talent, and how to move them along, you see some amazing outcomes, both for their participant as well as for the client.
Yeah, I love that, Damien. Sorry, just to chime in, support, a word of support. I think that's so spot on, and I just want to focus instead this idea of it's a mindset shift on two sides of the spectrum. One's a mindset shift in the individuals we're working with, we're training, but then a mindset shift on employers, and how they think about talent and the future of work. And you know, Robbie, you asked about how this consortium is differentiated. Infosys is one of those reasons, right? There's no other organization that I know of that is as forward thinking in this regard around the future of training and development. And we need more top employers, top brands setting this precedent, you know, to pull others, you know, in their wake, to engender this mindset shift, because it won't happen without that.
Just to connect on that one thing you mentioned, and Ashwin, I'm going to come to you in a bit. You know, today morning I was having a conversation on a different with a different set of people, and one of the things which caught my attention is this whole credentialing thing, which Frida also spoke about, the taxonomy piece. And I heard this comment which said, by the way, are we just creating one more proxy to degrees by credentialing? And I said, wow, this is really a thing to deal with, in the sense, are we going to go from one lock-in to another lock-in, as I call it? Do you have any view on that? And maybe anybody else can pick up after that. And I haven't spoken to one other partner of ours before I jump to more questions.
I think one of the things that sometimes we get tied up in and confused around is everybody's looking for the degree or the credential that's happening. What I think is unique about what we're doing here in this consortium is that we're really looking at how do we empower a learner to manage their career for their lifetime. And I think we need to look sometimes beyond just the credential or just the degree, because really when employers are looking for a great employee, it's those employees that can be contributing across multiple segments or multiple timeframes within their company. And what I really feel we're doing with this consortium is we're giving that empowerment capability to both the learner and the employer that's looking for the talent. And going from the assessment and making sure you're getting on the right career path, and then having the ability over the lifetime of your career to change and adapt and learn more credentials as you're going. It's different than just focusing, I'm looking just for a bachelor's degree person. Really what we're doing is we're giving the company and the candidate the ability to have this empowerment across their career. And I think if we look at credentialing more of stepping stones and laddering through a career versus the end point, which I think a lot of businesses look for, is like, you know, if you have that credential or you have that degree, you're hired because you're great. Really, we need to look at it as how can we continue to develop, enhance their career, make them more productive for us, and allow them to make more money for their family. And if we're really looking at it as that lifetime career path of empowerment, credentialing becomes what I would call sort of milestones along that career versus the ending of the career like most companies look at it now. That's my thought around it.
And the only thing I would add is that, you know, so long as you keep access to credentialing open, which, you know, all of these partners do, I think then it doesn't become a gate. I think it's when the access to something becomes difficult or tied to socioeconomic status that then that is a problem. So.
Yeah, and I would add, Robbie, I think in this scenario, it's a both and not an either or. I think credentialing needs to be available, to the point that my colleague just made. But also, it's high time, and Infosys have taken a lead on this already, for employees to make that mental model shift where it's a skills-based economy. So when you're thinking about your business and how to really drive your business forward and how to build that resiliency inside of your firm, you have to start looking at where can I get the people to get this, that can bring this skill to the table, not who would bring the credential or the educational criteria to the table, but who can do the job, and how well can they do the job so that they can move the agenda forward for my company. Once companies make that shift, they will open up a floodgate of talent that they just overlooked before, simply because they had sort of like these manufactured barriers inside of their recruitment channels. Once you make that shift, you get past the barrier.
Yeah. I think that, I agree. And I think that calling.
And that's when you were saying something. Was it topic?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll just continue with this. I don't want to bring back the previous one, right? See, to me, I'm going to give an alternate view on the credentializing, right? So in the past, hiring used to be based on experience and education, right? So we had like, if I had the 3 years of experience in so-and-so company, or I had a bachelor's degree at this university, it brings in a certain indirect and direct credential that this person did it. But moving into skill-based hiring, that's what we want, and that's what
you outsource the evaluation process to the brand. You almost outsource the evaluation process to a brand, and you take recourse to it to hire somebody. Now you have to take the responsibility of evaluating the skills yourself.
Exactly.
And that to me is the big difference, right?
Exactly. That is exactly the point I'm coming to. So it is, anybody can claim I have a skill, but what credential is associated with that skill? And as long as applicant tracking systems are used for recruitment, credentials will be some kind of expectation, not some. In many ways, it will be a needed thing for somebody to stand out and get a job. So in my way, eventually we might lead to a path without credentials, but credential is an essential step for us to reach that path.
Yeah, and one thing I want to build on with that, I think that we're agreed, but what's important is that we recognize that the credentials, whether we're talking about a 4-year bachelor's degree or a applied technology credential, let's call them what they are. They're proxies. At the end of the day, employers don't actually care about credentials. They don't care about bachelor's degrees. They care about whether or not the person can do the job to feed the bottom line. And the problem is that we have we have poor proxies that we're using, and these proxies have other pernicious effects around discrimination. So I think that as long as we are agreed and employers have this skill mindset, and we know that that is the North Star, that's what we're trying to get to. And then it's a process of identifying better, more effective proxies. That feels like the journey forward, rather than saying like, oh, we really do care about the credential. No, it is skills. That should be the heart, and we'll figure it out over time. But we need that emphasis first.
When we're moving into an economy where the half-life of skills is just so less, learning and studying in schools and colleges for 1/3 of your life and then applying it to 2/3 of your life is out of the window. So you will have to make this stackable and keep doing this on an ongoing basis. It's almost like climbing Mount Everest, but you don't climb Mount Everest. You get to the base. And then you keep climbing, for your whole life, and you get there at the end. So that's what this is about. Credentialing helps you to micro-modularize it and therefore stay ahead of the curve on skills versus, I call this just in case versus just in time. You study just in case you need this in your life. That's how we did undergrad degrees and grad degrees. And we're moving to just-in-time learning, which means you learn and you apply to your jobs as it may be needed. Sorry, Frida, you're saying something.
No. Well, one thing, Ravi, I think you only study for 1/5 of your life and then work. We're all going to change that, and we're all going to have 8 to 10 careers during that time. I'm already on my second. So, but the other thing I was going to say is, just to echo some Connor's points, I think we have to put fairness and equity at the center of what we're doing. I think that's a big part of the problem. I think once we start creating all these pathways, it doesn't really matter what the pathway is. I think we have to always keep that fairness and equity in mind. And unfortunately, historically, that's not the way employment has really, been structured. So I think if we do that, then no matter what we consider the pathway or the gating mechanism, a much better outcome will be produced. Because I think in shutting out huge demographics from key industries, I think we lose perspectives that are invaluable, and I think that it really hurts society overall. So I think just keeping fairness and equity in mind at all times is also critical.
Yeah, and then and Ravi, one of the things I think about when I'm looking at degrees and credentials is I think sometimes we get so stuck on the credential or the degree as the business, we really forget about what that day one skill is that we're looking for that person to have. So just because they have an A+ or Net Plus certification doesn't mean they're going to have all the right skills. And what I like about this consortium that we're putting together is it gives us the ability to really customize for that learner and have them get those day one skills that may not be 100% to the credential or to the degree, but it is what that employer needs to have, right? So the way we're working together as a group is it creates that flexibility where, yeah, I do think credentialing is important. And as I'm working through my career, it's important to learn it. But also one of the problems with credentialing is they'll get so stuck on teaching one aspect of a degree in a bachelor's program that that's really not what the business even wants to have. I don't know how many businesses I talk with, and they're like, man, if the schools would just teach ABC, my employees would be so much better prepared for work. And what I think this consortium is doing for us is it's allowing us to look at talent pools for companies that are unique, that are usually overlooked. Take like associate's degree earners or people in less affluent neighborhoods, and we can take them and get them those day one skills quickly, right? We can do that in the matter of months instead of years. And then on the job with the employer's input, we can customize that learning for them. And I think that's really what this consortium does, is it creates those pathways and that flexibility for not only the employer, but also for those unique learners that right now are a little scared to go get a bachelor's degree because it's intimidating, or man, I don't know if I can get that credential. But if we take it down to more like bite sizes, and I think that's what this consortium really does, is gives us that ability to build up to the credentialing, but really focus on those day one skills.
Yeah,
thank you so much. That was such a conversation. I wanted to switch to a very different topic. Rajesh,
sure.
Allow me to do so that we can add more things. This is so interesting. We can, and all of you are so passionate about it. So I'm sure all of you, we can talk for hours on this. But I wanted to raise one other important topic, which I think is going to be a challenge we need to deal with, and I think every consortium will deal with. It is about how do you create demand from employers to hire from reskilled talent rather than ready-made available in the market. Now, we have this dichotomy for decades where there are jobs available, there are people not available, and in parallel, there are people who are losing jobs. It just happens that the problem is precipitated now with the crisis, but this problem existed for many years. Now it's kind of precipitated because almost 2 million people are losing jobs every week to get to the 40 million, 1.5 to 2 million. But how do you make employers believe that they can take a leap on reskilled talent and therefore bridge that gap? To me, demand is going to be a big factor in making this consortium successful for the outcome we spoke about, which is getting a job. Maybe Rajesh, you can go first because you were keen to respond to the previous one.
Sure, Ravi, and I think, as you said, this would be one of the challenges. But let me draw upon the experience at Infosys, right? We have tried this, and I think we can very confidently say we've got a really great experience of bringing talent, non-traditional talent, if I may call them, either underrepresented or less than bachelor's degree, people who do less than bachelor's degree. And we've been very successful in bringing them into the mainstream work, and not just bring them into the work, but also provide them a pathway to go to the next levels over a period of time, if they continuously skill themselves and perform on the job. And I think the model of hiring an apprentice rather than a full-time employee and allowing an individual to showcase their skills, what they've garnered, and then continuing into a full-time employment.
Do you pay them during that period, which still means
yes, we do.
The employer still has to.
Yes, because as an individual, and especially to the point of bringing an underrepresented or a person who has not had the similar opportunities as some of the others, they need to earn their livelihood and they need to support their families. And it's important that as an employer, we give them that support during the apprenticeship period and bring them, and that kind of helps them to continue their hunger for learning, because then they're not worried about earning a full-time employment and not really gaining the skills for the future. And I think that combination really works well. And maybe I'll throw in another point and would love to hear people's perspective. I think that's also an area where the governments need to look at how can they incentivize employers and individuals to learn and employers to hire them. There are various means which, and especially during the crisis, government is trying to support, or various governments are trying to support the unemployed or displaced workers. And I think that's another area which would really help employers to get motivated to look at this talent pool.
Oh, I think other people wanted to jump in. I just want to make a few quick points. I think, quite frankly, many people will need to reskill. So I don't think we're just talking about folks that haven't had opportunity to traditional routes. I think, I'm reskilled, for example, right? So just that the broad bucket. I think secondly, with all of the civil unrest that happened after George Floyd, I think that there's a true motivation now from the part of business that potentially didn't exist before to really look at underrepresented groups in their hiring process. We see that across our clients. So I think that's a very good sort of tailwind for this initiative. And then again, I think it's just back to this idea that companies that emphasize diversity, and Infosys is a great example. You just shared that your stock price went up, and here you are talking about workers that you've gotten from underrepresented communities. Companies that put diversity first perform better, and diversity could be gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, a whole variety of things. So I think people believe that now; they see it in practice. So I think all of those three tailwinds, will definitely be good for thinking about this reskilling.
And just to add one more thing to it, right? So if you think about it, this should not be positioned in my mind as like a social responsibility, right? Are we doing a social responsibility? Yes. But rather this should be positioned as an essential service.
Correct.
Because industry is not just facing a talent acquisition problem. The industry is also facing a talent transformation problem. Innovation is key. What this does is, like, if you are just hiring people, for example, in the tech jobs with math background, you're going to get the same kind of solution. And where is the innovation there? I think this gives you a diversity of thought. And this diversity of thought leads to diverse approach, and diverse approach leads to innovation. In my mind, this should be positioned as a much essential thing for company to innovate rather than just trying to help the community. That's how I would approach it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing. For me, even at Scholas, I've been with the company for 19 years, but I saw substantial buy-in and engagement from our employer partners once we switched it from deficit language, so underserved, overlooked. Now we talk about that when we're talking with our funders, but we have another talk track for our corporate partners, which is all based on value. So when we had these conversations with employers, and Robert, your question was, how do you drum up demand from your corporate clients? And I've been able to do that by talking about value. So let's talk about cost-effective recruiting based on working with workforce development firms or platforms like this one that we have created. I mean, you could talk about limiting the risk in hiring, having access to a diverse talent pool, reduce turnover. All of those things, and taking a very consultative and thoughtful approach to understanding the client's needs, and then developing out a solution that meets that demand. Once we keep it intact and in alignment with the value of that company, where it can impact their top and bottom line, we can serve both of our end games by making sure that we address value and also having social impact without being extremely explicit about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other big focus, I agree 100%, is we really have to communicate with those employers what value add they're getting from using our talent pool. And I think one of the biggest things we'll be able to do, if you think about the group that you guys have put together, what other group can an employer come to and be able to say, man, I'm looking for this type of talent or this type of skill set, and we can show them from assessment at the beginning with personality traits clear through customized training, and then in results, right? Because really what those companies are looking for, like we were just saying, is how do I keep my bottom line? How am I not negatively impacting the help from my other employees? And really this consortium allows that to happen. And I think if we do a really good job at communicating the key aspects of how we add value to them as the employer, right? We're going to try to find the best type of personality. We're going to do day one customized training for you so that when you get the candidate, you have lower turnover, you have higher productivity rates. You're gonna not have to use as much time with your current employees training those employees. And on top of that, this is a network that as they're working with you, they're going to be able to come back to and continue to reskill themselves as they're working with you. If they don't understand a topic, hey, we can help them understand that topic. They're not going to be left lost. And I think if we can build that value for the employer to see how it works, I think the employers are going to want to be able to do it. I think right now they're a little timid because as they've done a little pilot here, a little pilot there, they really haven't brought in the full scope of what we've put together here in this group. And so they haven't had the great outcomes, right? And so if we can show them and then give them the outcomes, I think employers will want to get on board and they'll want to be involved with the talent we're generating and they'll want to be part of the network. I think we just need to show them how that adds value to their business. And really this group of businesses together touch every aspect of a value add piece a business is going to look for in one-stop shop, right? I don't have to go to 20 places to figure it out. It's right here with this group that you guys have built.
What are those pathways you believe are going to be super critical, both from the standpoint of heavy lifting, because there is so much needed in that space, and also from a standpoint of easy to reskill and fit it in, irrespective of where you come from?
Because I was on a panel the other day, and I'm forgetting. I know what it was. But anyways, there was a company that had reskilled a person that used to work as a janitor. Not as a janitor, as a restaurant manager at Bojangles into a sales rep. And, sales, I think I know we're not talking about that here. It's a lot of tech training, but sales is a really overlooked area where there aren't a lot of hard skills. It's a lot of soft skills. It is finding the right fit. And this person, who's a woman and a grandmother, at the age of 47, basically said that managing a restaurant at Bojangles was much, much harder than doing technology sales, which is what they had retrained her into. So I just think that when we think about pathways, it isn't just learning how to code and all of that, which is wonderful. And as the CEO of an AI company, I value that. But I think there are many pathways, and that's all why I think finding your fit in the beginning is so critical. So
yeah, it's definitely a great point. I actually was just talking to an employer last week, and I think one of the areas that's probably an easy area to look at reskilling is this person does medical, and what happened in the world is they had to transition all their medical offices to virtual offices. And what happened is all their medical assistants that they had, and they have 50,000 patients across their network, and the medical assistants didn't know how to go virtual. And so I think a lot of the areas we have the skill sets that some of the employees that currently are in jobs need to have, and they're not able to perform the new job in the new way that it's happening. And so we were talking and we're working with them on how do we take a medical assistant and teach them the technology skills so they're using iHealth apps, and how do you handle wearables and all those different skills that today are needed that weren't needed 6 months ago. And so I think an easy place to look at is, yes, hey, look, I'm an airline pilot or I'm a stewardess now that isn't flying, but man, is there something if I add a little bit of technology skill to it or a little bit of this, now I can take what I have and I'm repurposed into a new career, and I didn't have to make an entire industry shift, right? Because if you really think about it, every industry has technology. And what this group does is it allows us, and really what I love about your stuff, Frida, is the ability to look at an assessment, right? And say, man, where would I be good at? Oh, man, you would be awesome if you had this type of personality, went with this type of career, and this is the skill you need for that. And you can easily transition them into the technology side of the career versus just being a medical assistant and I'm taking heart rate, or I'm a stewardess and I just know how to do that, right? Like, you can teach them to have multiple values for an employer, which makes them more valuable, right? Yeah, you're a great MA, but man, now you know how to deal with wearables, you know how to deal with apps. Now I'm going to keep you as an employee and hire you because you have multiple skill sets that I can use as an employer versus a single point. And so for me, one of the easiest areas is how do we find those people that have been underemployed or sort of side employed? We can reskill quickly. Literally in 3 or 4 weeks, I can take an MA and train them how to do the technical stuff. And now they're able to work in a virtual medical world, right? And we forget about that. Yet I was talking to the healthcare network. They had to lay off like 400 medical assistants and rehire because they didn't know how to do the job, right? Those are little things that we could really help with this consortium.
Yeah, I would say that the pathways that I think would be the most beneficial would, of course, be those pathways that are sustainable and scalable, and those that are looking at the jobs of the future. So when you think about automation technologies promise to deliver, major productivity benefits that are too substantial to ignore. So, they have also began to reshape the American workplace. So this evolution, and then when you think about the pre and post-COVID impact, those automation skills are going to be essential inside of the workplace. So getting the right individuals inside of these tracks, inside of automation, I think is an amazing strategy to make sure that we're forward facing and creating the right talent. But then you have other sections, right? You have front end engineers, you have Java developers, data scientists, product managers, DevOps engineers, software engineers. There's so many tracks inside of IT right now that we can put people on where they can not only just land a job, but they can get these enormously great careers and be able to take care of them and their families and really change the landscape of their lives and still add value.
He started the conversation by saying that 6 out of 7 jobs of the future does not exist now. And this is the headlines here is, I can bet you these 6 jobs require some kind of tech enablement to it, or tech knowledge to it. So we have no option except to reskill, right? Reskilling is there is no option except for us to get it, because that's the job of the future. So I think what in my mind, where we should begin with, we should start looking into the aptitude and attitude. And once we identify that, then many pathways based on their background, based on their aptitude can be designed. I think starting reskilling should be started with aptitude and attitude.
Can I just make a comment though on that? I mean, I do think, I saw a different stat, which is, the WEF estimates that 2/3 of kids born today, will be in complete jobs that don't exist. So, tomatoes. I do think, and look, again, I lead a technology company, but even there, half of the folks that work there don't code and don't, yes, they need to be able to use technology in a light way. So I do think that there are a lot of pathways that are not going to involve, heavy tech. And look, I like math. I have a PhD, so I'm a nerd, but not everybody likes math. And so I don't want to scare everyone off in thinking that, if I don't want to, learn how to program, the world of the future isn't accessible to me. I just think that's not the way to think about things. It's a combination of, technology skills. And also, they've shown that people that can combine, tech skills with, sort of empathy, humanity, all of these sort of human-centric skills that a computer will not learn are actually the ones that are best positioned. So I just want to put that out there for anyone who's watching this and thinking, what will I do if I don't like to deep tech? So.
And Frida, to your point, I think what's important is to also understand that tech is also not just about the deep tech of coding and doing heavy mathematics around it, right? The digital ops jobs, right? Cybersecurity, for example, is probably going to be one of the hottest job generating area for future or automation. And I don't think so that requires not all the jobs in cybersecurity or automation require heavy coding, right? The understanding of tech, ability to use the tools, and your subject matter, like if you've been an accountant and you get into fraud prevention, for example, right? You will have the ability to use your skills you've studied or skills and combine them with technology skills to actually gain a completely new set of employment, a new career into in a new world, right? So I think it completely to your point, right? It's a combination of skills. But to Ashwin's point, right? 6 out of those 7 jobs, or 2/3 of the jobs which the kids don't know today, will require some kind of tech, and hence the tech enablement and need not be deep end programming skills. I think that is the distinction we need to do. I think there's a big continuum which we need to make people walk through.
Yeah, completely agree.
I think I'll chime in with kind of an obnoxious meta comment. I think that one thing that we've learned is that I think we tend to overestimate our predictive powers of how much things will change and what the future will look like. And so with that in mind, while technology, yes, is crucial, I think we'll all agree that probably the more crucial skill that we need to be teaching ourselves, our employees, our communities, are metacognitive. They're the skills of learning how to learn. They're the skills of operating and thriving in a dynamic environment, the skills of grit and perseverance. And those are the skills that will necessarily allow us to thrive. And to bring it back to the earlier question around why companies should focus on this upskilled talent, one of the reasons why is because they have a proven track record necessarily of upskilling, reskilling themselves, right? And that is, I think, what we need to begin to prioritize and also intentionally cultivate and train for. How do you learn how to learn in a way that is as dynamic as the job market in which we find ourselves?
I agree 100%. And I think one of the unique things about what we're trying to do here is not only are we giving them the tech skills, but we're also teaching them through the technology that in this time of day is what they need to have to be able to do that, right? And I think part of the fear, as I was sitting on a panel last week talking with some educators, and the biggest problem they're having is a lot of students are scared to go back and get reskilled because they think they have to go back to a traditional ground campus to learn something. And I think what we all bring to the table is the ability to give them a new way to learn in the new environment and still learn all the skills, the job ready skills. And a lot of our courses that we do and from all of us focus on is how do we build those interpersonal skills as well? Because a lot of these learners that we're working with, they're not at a bachelor's degree because they didn't have some interpersonal skill or confidence to be able to get there. And I think what this program that we've put together is we're really giving that empowerment to learn those soft skills. And that's what the assessment and a lot of our courses will be able to do is give them that ability to not only build the hard tech skill, but also those interpersonal skills that employers are really looking for, right? How do you communicate virtually in a team? That's a little difficult. Some people don't think it is, but it is, right? How do you use Zoom and how should you interact and what's polite and how do you do those things? And those are some of the basic skills we're going to be teaching them as well as they're going through the learning beyond how do I code, right? And so I think as people are looking at like, how can I get involved with this consortium and move forward and reskill myself because I don't want to be a programmer? There's all those other opportunities for those jobs that don't require programming that we can help them get into, like the accounting that was mentioned earlier, or, just shifting a little bit. Hey, I've been in logistics. I'd love to be truck driving, but, there's no way to do it because I can't go to school to learn how to do that. Well, we can create opportunities for them to learn those ways virtually and be able to advance without needing to be in person.
We're at the end of the hour. Let's start to do the last few things which we really think are important to talk. As we go forward on this, we're going to have supply channels, we're going to have demand channels. Hopefully the marketplace is vibrant enough. But that's the ideal spot to be in. You have demand, you have supply, You have the pathways, and everything goes, as per plan. But if I have to pick one or two important things you believe the partners in the consortium have to be mindful or watchful of, what would those be? And all of you have done this before in different ways. You've got to the market either to attract employers or to attract job seekers. What do you think would be the things we all should be watchful about as we go forward in this, if we want to make this a vibrant, successful platform?
So I would say that, I think this platform will be successful if we figure out a smart way to concentrate employer demand. If we are able to concentrate in different regions what employers are hiring for and have some form of commitment around that hiring, commitment to hiring a diverse, dynamic, inspiring group of alternative talent, I think the rest will fall into shape. I think that will pull, and granted, I'm oversimplifying, but I think that is absolutely crucial.
So you think demand is going to be critical? How do you curate the demand and bring it in?
I think supply is also really important. I think that really as all understanding the importance of coaching and kind of last mile service delivery is crucial. There's a list of things, but at the end of the day, I think this space lives and dies by the jobs, and it is pulled by those market forces. And I am yet to see a consortium, a government agency, anything able to effectively concentrate jobs in a way that is digestible, that is actionable for the number of inspiring service delivery partners out there, like Scholas, like Merit America, like Revature, like others. And so I think that if we are able to do that effectively in a data-driven, transparent way, I think that will shift everything else.
And Ravi, to continue with that, right? See, for me, we normally tend to go to step one, then step two, like that, right? So here we are trying to, when you go to an employer, I think we should not focus on hire 10 people or 20 people or 30 people, right? To me, the number one thing we should do is probably that step zero, is having these participants have access to these jobs, right? They don't have to get the job, getting access to this job. So our focus should be going to employers and say that, listen, we are not telling you to hire 100 people from this program, but can you consider in the interview so that they will get access to the job? So a lot of the are because they do the program and they don't know how to access to the job. And we enabling that, to me, will be the perfect thing I think we should start with.
As we call it. Frida, you were saying something.
But I want to just say something slightly different, which is that the way that the matching is set up, just so that everybody knows, right? Once you've sort of aggregated the new skills that you have, you're not just going to have access to some curated set of employers. You're actually going to be sent automatically using the Burning Glass integration to any job anywhere that you're now reskilled for. So we don't have to just view our employer partners, who have obviously play a critical role, as the only demand side generation. And I think that's really important because, again, we can't aggregate every single hiring partner in the United States. And so having a tech layer that will say, oh, Rajesh, you got reskilled in, something you never did before. Here's 3 employer partners who can hire you, but here's actually 15 or 500 employers we have no relationship with, but who are hiring. And now you're skilled to go apply to that job. So I think we have to think about this broadly. It is an ecosystem, but it will have tentacles into, basically any job board where you're now qualified. And I think that's a huge value to the job seeker.
Yeah. And by the way we are setting this up as one integrated tech platform, starting from where you land to evaluation of skills, to the taxonomy, to identifying the pathway, to which pathway is done by which partner, and then the marketplace. So it's very seamless. That's how we want to be at the end. Mm-hmm. And we are hoping that seamless experience, if somebody who starts at the start of the funnel to the end of the funnel gets that experience, irrespective of the fact that all of us have different platforms. We want to bring all of that together. That's our end goal. So Anybody wants to comment on what would be that that one or two critical things we should be watchful about in this consortium? As Connor said, there's so many of them. We have tried. There's so many of them which are available in the market, but uniquely, I would say this is bringing the value chain together. But we still want to be watchful on a few things.
Very quickly, Robbie, I would say I totally agree with Connor. Our North Star is jobs. At the end of the day, it's just what we have to do. We're going to have an effective coalition. And I think up underneath that, something that we should just keep our eye on, because I've seen other initiatives, not fail, but just not meet the mark, is that the goal should be to be effective and impactful, but we know that we can't boil the ocean. So understanding and level setting everyone's expectations on what the outcomes will be for the participants as well as the employers will be critical as we move along to make sure that we ensure success.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the most important part of this aspect is going to be the placement of the talent in the company. I think what we need to be able to do is the companies need to understand that we have a talent pool that is unique, that is customizable to what they need. And if you think about all the tools and systems that we have together in this group, this should be the best place for an employer to come to source talent. Every employer is using 15, 20, 30 different recruiting agencies or universities trying to find talent. Imagine if you could come to a location, put in your talent skills that you need to have, and through the assessment and the trainings, it gives back to you 7 or 8 candidates that have skills in those areas you're looking for. And so I think if we can show the employer the ability that they have to tap into a network of talent, that they can utilize all these different tools we have very easily, right? So that they can say, hey, I want this, and this, and these personality skills. And through the system, it curates it back and it says, here are the best 7 talent candidates that we have for you. And we would love to have them interview with you. And if you want one of them, great, right? And then at the same time, let's say you don't get the job. Imagine if they gave feedback and then it went back to the person and said, hey, if you would have known a little bit more in SQL, you would have had the job. Bam, here's you some SQL classes you can take to get that skill gap different these employers were looking for, right? So I think as we're going this, we need the employers to understand that we have a unique skilled talent base that they can come in and cherry pick who they want out of it. And then as we learn what they're missing, we help reskill them for the next interviews that are coming. And if those companies are willing to do that, then everything else will work into place. But they have to have that ability to come and look. And I think if they just try it, even if it's like try one, just try one. You don't need to have 100, just try one. Once they experience the success, it'll start going around. But I think if we can get those employers to understand that value add we bring them, finding the supply of the talent, I don't think it's going to be difficult. It's going to be getting those employers to want to invest and take the risk of hiring what they would consider to be not their normal type of talent. And we need to make sure our platform can give that.
The way I see it is, anytime we have done a kind of a test bed about what we're trying to do with some of the states, some of the enterprises, clients of ours. They ask me, why are you doing this? There's so many of them available in the market. What is so unique about this? And I keep telling them the radical reskilling needed in the current situation needs a chain of things. And you cannot just have an online learning platform to get the jobs you need. You need to have the experiential hand-holding, on-the-job training, apprentice, whatever you call it, in whatever format. That piece is super critical for doing the kind of heavy lifting needed. That to me is the most unique thing in this platform. All of you, all partners in this process today, are not just throwing content at a job seeker. You're all hand-holding them to a skill needed in a job. And I think that's the uniqueness of this consortium, the ability to get them to a job and the ability to handhold them as they do a job so that they take off from there. I don't think there is any other platform which is uniquely positioned for it. So our aspiration as a group is to get there. Great. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, Frida, Rajesh, Connor, Jacob, Damien, Ashwin. Thank you so much for this excellent, passionate, and vibrant conversation about this partnership. And I'm so looking forward to working with all of you in making an impact and making it very purposeful for the communities we all serve and live and work for. So thank you again for doing this, and thank you for being a part of this partnership.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robbie. Pleasure to work with all of you. Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.